I think it's time for this week's installment of Ezekiel Kralen's story about the two little dogs and his friend Deke. The Curious Case of the Missing Summons is the title of this one. Ezekiel Kralen wrote email correspondence April 3rd and April 4th. Subject San Francisco Bar Update. Date April 3rd. I got an email from them this afternoon to call them via phone and give them further information on my case. I just got off the phone with their screener, who asked me several questions, including the name of the plaintiff, which is Chinese, so I had to spell it out. Now I have to wait 2 or 3 more business days for someone to get back in touch with me, assuming they decide to handle my case. It will cost me a $35 fee for a half-hour consultation. I have no idea what other fees will accrue based on my income. Or even if they're going to take my case at all. This is nerve-wracking. Subject. Pesky Vince showed up again. Date April 4th, morning. He's the little guy who pops up in my life like a jack-in-the-box when I least expect, but really don't want in my life at all. The one who walked into my building uninvited early last year and was stopped by the manager, who asked who he's visiting, and he said Zeke, whereupon I heard some commotion in my hallway, so I opened the door and saw them standing there by the stairway. Kevin asked if he's here to see me. I said no, and I've already told him months ago I don't have any more visitors. It happened 2 nights ago, around 3 a.m., when I heard Deke somewhere outside blasting his speaker. At first I thought it was coming from a parked vehicle, which often happens, and it's almost always gangsta or melodic rap, just like he plays all the time. Though that night it was actually pleasant, just too loud. But after about 10 minutes, I figured to step outside to see if Deke was hanging out beneath Super Duper's awning, which blocks my view from the window of anyone who might be down there. Sure enough, when I opened the gate and peered left, there he was, and the pups were already looking in my direction with glee. As I approached, he blurted, "Music too loud?" "Sorry." I nodded my head, and rather than pivoting right around to return hovel, took a few minutes to hug and kiss the doggies. Deke didn't seem to mind at all, and I appreciated him giving me no grief. He turned the rap music down to a respectable low volume without delay. I then wished them all a good night, and just as I entered the gate and it closed behind me, I heard someone call in an excited voice, "Zeke! Zeke! 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 Zeke!" I turned around to see Vince hurtling across the street, I presumed from the transit island where he was waiting for a streetcar, then smashed up against the gate's grillwork with fingers poking through in a tight grip. "How you doing tonight, Zeke?" He addressed me. "I'm trying to sleep is how I'm doing," I replied, in not such a pleasant voice. "I just told Deke over there to lower his music. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to go back to bed." "Don't worry, I'm not trying to get in your building," he replied, totally ignoring what I just said. Of course, that's how meth freaks are. "I would hope you're not," I snipped. "I'd call the cops on you if you did." "What? You'd boink the cops?" He chuckled. "That's funny." "I said I'd call the cops if I saw you in my building," I replied. He then rattled on some other nonsense, which I can't recall because I was laser-focused on getting him to vamoose. "I cannot talk with you now. I need my sleep, so please go. Unglue yourself from the gate." But he didn't. Instead, he just stood there gazing at me with a dumb grin, face pressed against the grill with tongue sticking out. Not with anger, though, something more akin to a friendly stupor. "What?" I said, and held both hands palm up. I noticed then another fellow about 4 feet behind him, also smiling. Now, who the hell is this guy? Sorry, I didn't say that right. Who the fuck is this guy, I thought. I then waved a dismissive hand at Vince. "Go, now, please." Finally, he turned around and took off. As I climbed back up the stairs, I heard the gate open and noticed from the corner of my eye it was that dude who stood behind Vince. I realized then he was a resident, politely waiting to step inside. "Geez, Vince, thanks for nothing." I didn't bother to address him, say something like, "Sorry, I didn't know you needed inside." Nor did I sense he expected to hear that anyway. I just marched upstairs to my room and placed my head back down on the pillow, free of Deke-induced noise pollution at last. Lesson learned, as if it hadn't been already, years ago. Speed demons are pests, and if you have one in your life, for whatever reason, hopefully an important one, be sure not to acquire another. Signed, Zeke K. Holmes. P.S. Now, this incident occurred 5 days after I received that awful summons. Like I really need another gremlin in my life at this time. Neither Deke nor Vince have any idea what's going on in my world these days. Freaking clowns. Subject. Now my summons pages have vanished. Date, April 4th, afternoon. And now all my summons pages have disappeared from my room. They were right there on my cot beside me as I spoke with someone from San Francisco Bay. Probably he meant bar. The bar. Don't know when they vanished, as I didn't notice them missing until a few moments ago as I was wrapping things up, ready to go to bed. I combed my room everywhere, but nothing. I never took them outside my room. What the fuck is going on? I left my door unlocked for a couple of minutes when I stepped out to bring the pups some water after Deke had returned to pick them up. I dog sat today. More about that tomorrow. I've also used the restroom once with the door unlocked. Could someone have slipped into my room and swiped them? I find that highly unlikely. Thank Glob I took snapshots of all those pages and backed them up to my Google Drive. Don't know, Watson. I am hoping to wake up tomorrow morning and find them somewhere. I have only 12 days to sign and send back to the plaintiff's attorney page 3 in that summons, acknowledgement of receipt. I can get a printout and send it off, though it'll be a bit slanted, as that's how the pic came out. Damn it, I just sent an email to plaintiff's attorney requesting he mail it again. I also noticed on one summons page that plaintiffs include does 1-50. I looked up what that means. 50 additional people filed a complaint? Maybe I understood that wrong, but geez if I didn't. Now my summons pages have vanished. Date, April 4th, afternoon later, Watson wrote, "Oh, that's too fucking weird." I replied, "They are nowhere. Though all my other papers relevant to my eviction case are still here, in a box I set aside just for them. Guess I'll just go ahead and print out and sign the acknowledgement of receipt and then mail it off certified if a second copy of the summons doesn't arrive in a few days. I imagine my email alone is sufficient acknowledgement anyway." Some good news. I definitely can't be sued since garnishing my Social Security stipend is verboten. According to legal sources I checked out last night, what you said some months back, the truth will out eventually or something like that regarding these scumbags, and if I really have does 1-50... Oh, Doe's! Jane Doe's? Would that be all female complainants? I'm going to say does because I can't imagine that. That is 50 complainants. There you go. It'll be like a mini judgment day for them. Though, as an advocate of my own bodhisattva premise, I relax, harbor no ill will, and work toward a win-win outcome. And just how do I achieve that? No worries, just take care of my own needs, keep on my toes, and trust Kismet that all things shall fall into place in my favor. No need for me to break my back over this, which is the answer to dealing with any crisis, not a single exception under the sun. Again, this latest scenario is like a setup, a script devised to make me into the hero, the center of attention, for whenever I step outside of myself and look at things objectively, it sure makes for a splendiferous tale. Ergo, they are all in on it. The residents, the manager, the attorneys, and so on, bodhisattva guardians all. We have no enemies, only teachers, said the Buddha. Subject. This just came in from plaintiff's attorney. Date April 4, afternoon later, via email. Hi, Ezekiel. Do you have an attorney? If so, please have him or her contact me. A printout is fine. Thank you. Would you like me to send you another copy of the documents? And my reply, I am in the process of getting an attorney through the San Francisco bar. Yes, I would appreciate another copy of the documents, if it's no trouble. Thank you for a speedy reply. This just came in from plaintiff's attorney, date April 4, afternoon later. Watson wrote, "The plot sickens." I replied, "Oh, you clever prestidigitating literature, you." Subject. Deke was an a-hole yesterday morning. Date April 4th, afternoon later. He came by to pick up his weekly allowance of $100. Was supposed to be $80, but I told him several days back he'll get his next $100 on Monday, because the reduced payment starting this month slipped my mind. So being a man of my word, I won't begin the $80 payments till next week. When I stepped outside to see him, he was lying flat on the sidewalk, face up, beside his cart. God, I feel sick. Why do I feel so sick? He moaned. I didn't respond, just handed him the Chase envelope and crouched down to greet the divine Brindlekin. "Zeke, why do I feel so sick?" he persisted. I ignored his gripe because I know that game, and instead replied, "Did you feed the dogs this morning? Should I bring their meals?" "I don't know," he hollered. "I don't give a fuck." "Well, you should know," I calmly retorted. "You're with them almost all the time, and they're your best friends. They love you very much." Shut up, I'll start screaming again," he squawked. "You always make everything so complicated. Just bring them some food. Maybe they're hungry, maybe they're not. I just don't know. I feel so sick. Leave me alone." "I'm not being complicated, Deke," I replied. "It's a simple question, and if they already ate this morning, they won't be hungry, and I can't afford to waste food. It's expensive." He then raised himself upon one forearm and looked up at me. "Every night I sleep in that cabin, I feel sick when I get up. Other people there never turn on their heaters. They say there's poison fumes coming out of them. "That's ridiculous, Deke," I scoffed. "They don't believe me when I tell them I'm sick. They just tell me to knock it off, quit whining." He blurted with absurd self-pity. "You don't believe me either. I'm not a doctor, Deke. There's nothing I can do," I simply replied. "If you're really sick, they'll take care of you. That's part of their job." "Maybe it's fentanyl," he retorted, no doubt to instill further worry in this lost pilgrim's soul. "Well, I hope not," was all I said in reply, because I refused to fall into his tar-baby trap. Then he played his "I gotta get rid of the dogs" card, which I ignored because he knows it kicks me in the gut. And I replied, "Tell you what, I'll bring them a bowl of water right now, and then I'll know whether or not they're hungry." Meaning, of course, they'll look disappointed if they are. I don't care," was all Deke said in response, his head now laid back upon the concrete, eyes staring up at the sky. I told the mutts I'd be right back, leaving their master to mutter more nonsense as I returned upstairs to bring them water. Sure enough, they were hungry, so I brought them their breakfast a few minutes later. They licked their bowls clean. I collected the now empty dishes and told Deke, who had quieted down by that point, I'll be back in a few minutes to walk Flacco and Lucky. I don't know why he hadn't already departed, since he asked me to sit the dogs for a couple of hours. I was even tempted to say, you can leave now, but didn't bother. I used my time upstairs to finish drinking my banana smoothie, which his visit had interrupted, wash the bowls, and check my email, for I saw no reason to rush back outside when Deke was still there with the canines. Around 10 minutes later, I heard him call, "Yo!" So I stuck my head out the window. "Yeah, what's up?" I queried. Scampy had shown up by then, and it looked like they were ready to take off together. "Aren't you coming back down to walk the dogs?" he asked, squinting up at me beneath the bright sun. "Of course, I'll be right down," I called back. We had a lovely stroll up Noe Street and a couple of side streets as usual, including basking in the sunlight for almost an hour by Maury's corner store, though I was disappointed Lucky didn't like the new soft milk bones I bought for them. Soft because neither can deal with hard biscuit. He just sniffed it the several times I held one out and turned his head away. Well, his sister gobbled them up and begged for more. Fortunately, I still had a handful of jerky treats left in my backpack, which he did enjoy. Sidebar. Please note, I brought my Moto E with me because yesterday I was anticipating a phone call or email from the San Francisco bar. So I checked it every now and then, but nothing showed until later in the day, shortly after Deke returned, and I was back upstairs. When I walked them back to my building, I expected their master not to return for another 2 hours or so, but to my surprise he appeared barely 20 minutes after we sat down by the parking meter, where a sheet of cardboard was already laid out. "Watch them a little longer," he said, as the pooches wagged their tails, hoping for hugs and pats from their master, which never came. "I'm going to the gas station, back in 10 minutes. "Sure," I replied. "Take your time, we'll be here." He then rode off on his bike, leaving his shopping cart behind. Deke didn't seem to be the least bit ill. In fact, he was in good spirits. Meth refuel, perhaps, or just dropping that morning's stupid ploy. Maybe both. The rest of his visit went graciously, where he sat down to sort and bag the buds he acquired during the departure, with the pups sprawled out beside him. How I envy their joyful innocence, Watson. While he was sitting outside in apparent good humor, I finally got that email from Golden Gate Bar. Knowing I should call them right away, it was only around 4 p.m. I went downstairs to tell my Cajun millstone, "Look, I have to make an important phone call, so I can't be disturbed till it's over. So I'll let you know once I'm done. Until then, no calling up to my window for anything. Okay?" He was humming to himself while sorting product. "Well, okay, I hear you," he replied without looking up. The call took longer than expected because I forgot to allow for the being put on hold part, which lasted about 8 minutes. The call itself took maybe 3. I then peered out my window to tell him the coast is clear, but guess what? They had already vanished. To be continued.